Hey guys, welcome back to the Double MC podcast. It's your boy CV alongside Mello Mario and Mike Melt. Give him a shout out, guys.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey guys, I'm actually back for this one. Took a little episode off and now we're back.
Yeah, so we actually wanted to do a March Madness preview before the first weekend of games, but as I mentioned in the previous podcast, life happens. So we're going to go ahead and do a little review over this past weekend. Mike, you want to lead it off?
Yeah, I guess we could just talk about some of these bigger upsets, bigger games. I guess we should probably talk about St. Peter's here. They go ahead and knock off the 2-seeded Kentucky Wildcats. Huge game.
Huge upset.
Yeah, it's nice. This is the third time a 15 seed is knocked off a 2 seed. So, that's kind of a little bit tournament history there for you. There were some other upsets. I know NMSU was able to win their game, which is, I guess, technically an upset, right? Even though 12 seed usually beats a 5 seed in most of these tournaments, but upset nonetheless. Notre Dame had a nice little run, having to play in the first four in, eventually losing to Texas Tech, but it was a nice run for them as well.
Those big, bad Big 12 guys. Anyway.
The one that sticks out for me is Iowa State and the run that even though they're in the 11 seats, it's kind of not really an upset, but I mean they went and they beat Wisconsin, bro, and their physicality and the physicality of the Big 12 is really showing throughout the whole tournament. So I'm really impressed by Iowa State.
Iowa State doesn't surprise me at all, honestly, because just the toughness of the Big 12 throughout the season, it just prepares these teams so well.
Yeah.
What is it? Baylor's the only Big 12 team to lose, I think, right? Or at Texas now. Wait, take the Texas win or they lose?
No, Texas lost.
Texas lost, right?
TCU lost also at the end of that game.
Also, wait. I just want to give a shout out to my boy Emilio, IBM, TCU alum. He told me since November, Eddie Lampkin and Mike Miles were going to be huge tournament time. I've actually become fond of them over their past, 2 games. They were gritty, reminded me a little bit of that Elite Eight Final Four team.
Well, I don't think
grit.
I wouldn't guess them too much, Chris. They lost in the second round.
Well, I mean that we had some questionable calls at the end.
You went to TCU?
No. I'm saying we as the audience witnessed some questionable calls there at the end.
Horn frog now or what?
Hey, Riffram Bazoo. No, there was a questionable call at the end there. I mean,
at the end of regulation, it should have been a foul. It was a foul.
It should have been a foul. Everyone knows it was a foul. But
even if it wasn't a foul, then it's a backcourt. So like the officiating on that play was all over the place because you don't call the foul, fine, but then the guy dribbles it like it's a backcourt. 100%, he falls behind the halfway line. It's a backcourt. They just let it ride out completely.
That was just horrible.
If they make the layup, if they make the layup at the end of regulation, I feel like it would be a lot worse. The reaction would have been a lot worse to that call than it is. Because they went to overtime, so they had a chance to win, and they could have, but they couldn't pull it out. Okay, congrats to TCU, whatever. But I think that if they lose at the end of regulation with that no call, that would have been it would have sold a lot more than
and that's the beauty. That's the beauty about the tournament. This morning they got 2 really good recruits. So like even if you lose, even those big games you lose, you get that national notoriety.
Oh yeah, we know firsthand from Tech, man. Would like to what I'm sorry, we hate the guy, but what Chris Beard was able to build over the last 4 or 5 years at Tech, just by getting national eyes on the school and the toughness and the culture that they were building at Tech. So I think that especially for the upsets like St. Peter's, it really brings them up to a national level, and you show what you can do. You can build a culture. It's not only good for the players, it's also good for the coaches. They can get hired at a bigger school and bring in some of their guys as transfers and things like that.
Well, I don't think St. Peter's is gonna get any 5-stars anytime soon, but good for them.
And Chris Beard, the same coach who's been eliminated in the second round 2 years in a row. But anyway, I think the big upset for me was Creighton and San Diego State. I thought San Diego State had a pretty solid defense.
Well, San Diego State absolutely threw that game away.
Yeah, they should have won that game. There's no excuse. And sorry, my sister, cheerleader at San Diego State. If you're listening, I'm sorry, but y'all choked that game away. That was y'all's to win. That was pretty. If I'm a San Diego State fan, I'm pretty humiliated after that.
Oh yeah.
But justice was served. They got beat by Kansas, and somehow Providence snuck in there. And speaking of which, We had Richmond beat Iowa.
Oh yeah,
I think that was
forgot to mention them. Shout out them in Richmond.
yes. Shout out the Spiders, man.
Shout out the
What are y'all
Spiders.
thinking? What do y'all think
Yeah,
about these small schools making a name for themselves this
they
year?
got a win, but then they got absolutely trampled by Providence. So it was good while it lasted.
Every year you got these Cinderellas. It's good for the sport. It's good for the first couple of rounds, but after the first, two rounds, Sweet 16, you weed out all these smaller schools. You only get a Loyola Chicago once every 10 so years.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but
you have
it's good for the viewership, and then you weed down the pack to the real contenders, and then
Yeah.
I always think that the tournament really doesn't start till the third weekend, honestly, to the third round, fourth round even, because some of these Cinderella teams, because it's really not to the Sweet 16 when you get the 3-2 matchup, right, and you get the 1-4 matchup in each of the respective sides of the bracket, right? So the tournament, I mean, it's kind of like formalities for the first couple of rounds until we get to the real deal. So let's go ahead and talk about it now. No, should we go over some of these matchups?
Yeah, for sure. If y'all are cool with it, I'd like to start with Miami, Iowa State. Those are two teams that I don't think a lot of people have in their bracket. Miami's been a very, very finesse team all year. They've kind of floated underneath the radar. Had a couple good games here, like against Duke. I think the first time they played them pretty tight. Florida State, I don't know. I remember I messaged you guys. That was a really good game. That was a high scoring, great defensive game. I remember saying back then that Miami showed that they had what it takes to get through those ugly games in the tournament. Iowa State, as we know, is that team that can sneak up on you at any time. They can get hot at any time. Their defense is good enough to get them through a game. Not necessarily elite, but in Big 12 standards. But personally, I got Miami winning this one to lose to Kansas in the next round.
Yeah, here's my thing, right? I'm gonna go ahead, go first here, Mike, if you don't mind. So here's my thing with Iowa State. If you look at the scores from the first two rounds of the tournament, you got the first one they beat LSU 59-54. Okay, cool. They got a gritty win, awesome. Then you move on to the next round, they beat Wisconsin 54-49. And now you're looking on the other side. You look at Miami. They won 68 versus 66 against USC. In the second round, they blew Auburn pretty much out of the water. They really ran away with it late in that game. They were able to extend their lead, and they got up to 79-61. The matchup is going to be can Iowa State hold Miami under 60 points? And I think that if Iowa State, the defense can somehow find a way to hold Miami under 60 points, they'll win the game.
I mean, it's not going to happen. More realistically, you're looking at like the 70 to 75 range. If you're Iowa State, you have to score at least 70 points to beat this team.
Yeah,
let's just be realistic. Iowa State, you want to give them credit, right? Because they come from a tough conference. Yes, hard-nosed defense in the Big 12. Everybody gets that. Everybody plays pretty solid defense in the Big 12. I just think there's too many scorers on this Miami team. I saw him in the ACC tournament. They really impressed me. Shout out this Isaiah Wong. He dunked on pretty much he just absolutely destroyed. Who is a Jabari Smith, and that guy's probably going to be the number one pick in the draft. He just put that boy on a poster. He ain't going number one now. Yeah.
Goodness.
He put that boy on a poster. Shout out him. I mean, this team, they got some explosive characters on this roster. So, I mean, I don't see a world
where... They're a fun team to watch, too. Very fun.
You root for a team like Miami, kind of flew under the radar, making some noise in the tournament. I don't see a world where Iowa State beats this Miami team unless they're scoring 70. I don't know if they haven't proved to do that, on a consistent basis. So, you got to give the edge to Miami.
I don't know, man. I'm going to ride my go with this one. I think that Iowa State's going to pull it out because what we know that travels in this tournament is defense. And if Iowa State can somehow find a way to just keep Miami under, like I said, 60 points, then they can do it. Wisconsin was coming into the tournament very hard, scoring a lot of points and having a really efficient offense. And they really fell apart, especially at the end of the game versus Iowa State. They couldn't really get anything going. And, we've seen in other games, especially teams that are coming from the Big 12, the prevailing theme has been the defense. That's what travels the most. And I think that if Iowa State can find a way to really just keep Miami under control, just keep them under control, make it gritty, make it dirty, really kind of come out and punch them in the mouth, not let them get on too many big runs. I think that they're going to be able to neutralize Miami to an extent. And at that point, we've seen games in this tournament where the refs are calling it really tight, and we've seen other games where the refs are really kind of letting it go. So it's going to be interesting to see a team with a lot of finesse in Miami playing a really gritty, physical, kind of hard-nosed team in Iowa State, and see how they officiate that. And I think that's really going to decide which way this matchup goes, is if Iowa's defense can really step up to the plate and not so much completely shut down, but neutralize Miami as much as possible.
Well, here, I'll give you some stats here. Miami's averaging 75 a game.
Yeah.
And Iowa State is giving up 51.5 points a game on average.
That's crazy, man.
So there's your swing right there.
Play.
Something's gonna give right there. Something's gonna give.
But on the flip side, Iowa State themselves are only averaging 65, and that's pretty much about what Miami's been averaging to give up. Mm-hmm. But here's kind of what's encouraging from my standpoint, to give Miami the edge, is that in the ACC tournament, they played Duke extremely tight. It was a 4-point game, right? So based off what I saw there and how well I thought Duke played, even with the length that Michigan State had in the previous round, to play them, a team with some of the talent that Duke has on this team, to only lose to them by 4 in a high-pressure situation like the ACC tournament is, I think that speaks a lot of volumes about kind of the resilience this Miami team has.
That's what you need to win the tournament for sure. Next matchup we have is Kansas-Providence.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is clear. I think Kansas is gonna handle Providence.
I don't think it's gonna be a blowout. I like the Kansas team, getting to the Final Four, but I don't think they are a Final Four team per se. I think they lucked out with their matchups. I think they've been very fortunate.
Okay, well, let me give you some stats here on this one too. Providence is only giving up 54 a game, and KU is averaging damn near 80. They're averaging 79 a game. So this is another one where something's got to give. You're a high-scoring team with a team that doesn't give up a lot of points. Granted that KU's probably they've definitely played tougher competition, I think, than Providence. So that's reflected in the stats here a little bit. But I don't know, just some food for thought there.
I think Kansas is one of those teams that, from what I've seen in the tournament, they've been, like I said, fortunate of their matchups, but at the same time, they've also been pretty sloppy, which may help them get through this tournament. And I think that, from personal experience with Providence and Texas Tech, I think this is a team that can take advantage of making mistakes. They're not going to be a pushover like Creighton. They're not going to be a pushover like Texas Southern.
Well, you want to hear something interesting? You brought up Creighton, right? Providence played Creighton in their last game of the season and got absolutely blown out. It was 85-58 in their final game of the year. But then in the third to last game of the year, surprisingly, they play a really tough game against Villanova where they only lose by 2. So there's some inconsistency with this Providence roster, You can play probably the best team in the Big East, right? Villanova, lose only by 2, and then you go on to play Creighton, a top level team in the Big East, but definitely not the caliber of Villanova, and get absolutely manhandled. So I don't know. It makes me wonder.
I give Kansas the edge here because of one person that I think hasn't risen to his level yet.
Agbaji.
Ochai Agbaji. Ochai Agbaji hasn't played to what the three of us have personally seen that the guy can do. He hasn't been asked to kind of put the team on his back and lead them. And I think that if it comes down to it, just on a pure talent basis, this kid was obviously the Big 12 Player of the Year. He's insane. He's one of the best players in the tournament, period. This guy can flat out score from anywhere on the court. He can really stretch the floor. He's a big guy. And I think that this is going to be the first game where if Kansas is actually tested to the limit, the way that they were tested, say in the Big 12 regular season play, then I think Ochai is really going to step up to the plate. He's only scored 11 and 15 up to this point, respectively, against Texas Southern and then Creighton. but I think that he's definitely due for an explosion, and his like I'm here game is for sure going to be against Providence. That's why I give him the edge. It's just because we have seen Kansas ourselves like firsthand how good this team can be.
I think
So
Kansas honestly
do.
has I think Kansas has a cakewalk to the Final Four.
Yeah,
that's what I was saying too. I don't truly believe they're gonna go through. Like you have a team.
They won't be tested until the Final Four. I don't think.
I agree.
Yeah, exactly. Like you have teams, like you have matchups like Arizona, U of H, Michigan, Villanova, Tech, Tech, Duke, Arkansas, Gonzaga. Like that's.
Let's say Kansas. We think Kansas is gonna handle Providence, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They're playing the winner of Iowa State, Miami.
Yeah.
Like teams, like these teams, they're definitely gonna handle these teams. I mean, unless there's like some monumental collapse, crazy upset, or one of these teams to beat Kansas because they're not as skilled and they're not as talented as team. They just have to absolutely just have career games and just pop off. Or else this is a cakewalk to the Final Four for them.
I will say, Miami has stepped up in those games. Like those games where they don't really have a chance. They're not seen as anything. They beat UNC this year, mind you. They beat Duke this year by 2. Like this is a team that's not going to back down from you. They beat Virginia Tech this year. So it's kind of a weird bracket that Kansas has found themselves in. But like if you look objectively at just the rankings, it's like okay, Kansas is number 1. They beat number 16 Texas Southern. They beat number 9 Creighton. You guys are picking them to beat Providence, although I do believe that game is going to be tight. I think we will have 76-74. Call me crazy, but I think that it might go to overtime to get to that score. But I think that's going to be a really ugly game for both teams. But I don't think that it's a cakewalk past either of this Big 12 team or this ACC team. So again, it looks like they have a cakewalk, and most likely they'll end up in the Final Four, but they will have to earn it, kind of, sort of.
For me, there's no question that Kansas will earn it just because this team has been battle tested. I mean, when you play the regular season, 1 week you're playing Texas Tech, the next week you're playing another 1 seed in Baylor, the next week you're playing a 6 seed in UT Austin, and the next week you're playing TCU, who's a scrappy team. These guys are battle tested, and especially the
Texas
second game.
A good seed. Right?
Yeah, but because they're gritty on defense and stuff like that, and they did beat Kansas once going into this tournament. So
that's fair.
I think that Kansas is completely battle tested. Like these guys are bulletproof. They know what it takes to win. They have been with their backs against the wall, especially in that double overtime game against Texas Tech, the one at the Fog, and in the Big 12 tournament. So I think that Kansas is battle tested. They're proven and that they won't meet anyone who's up to their caliber until the Final Four, especially not Iowa State and Miami. I really don't think so. I mean, total respect to those schools, but I really don't think that Kansas is going to have a problem over the next 2 rounds for sure. Like, I really doubt it. For me right now, they are the only pencil-in Final Four team out of the entire bracket.
Should get interesting here, though. I do think it's going to get really interesting on Friday. I think that's when we're going to see the most shockers, because on Friday, we actually do have a good slate of games for you guys. But we have North Carolina, UCLA, Purdue, St. Peter's. I mean, St. Peter's got here, like, they're that team that's a lower seed, like, as you alluded to earlier, Mike, Chicago Loyola, how they just came in hot, and they're just winning. And that's all they're doing, winning and repeating. And they played Purdue, who just eliminated UT. So,
well, do you want to talk about this Purdue St. Peter's game then?
Yeah, let's move to the east side of the bracket now, I think.
Yeah, we'll move over there. There or North Carolina, UCLA. You guys start wherever.
Yeah, we'll do the St. Peter Purdue game because it's an interesting matchup because 15 seed, it's a nice story, but that's where the story ends, unfortunately.
Yeah, that'll be that.
Purdue's got too much length, honestly. It's just this should be realistic here. They have way too much length for this team. St. Peter's has nice wins against obviously Kentucky and Murray State. Those are good wins, but I just feel like this Purdue team is way too much. They play in a tough conference. They play in the Big Ten. They play in juggernauts. They play stingy defense. St. Peter's gives up way too many points. Watch, here's a stat for you. St. Peter's is giving up 70 points a game. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
And Purdue's averaging 80. Okay, so this is a funny stat here because St. Peter's is averaging 67 a game, but they're giving up 69 a game as their average. It's just kind of funny. So, take that for what it's worth. They are on a 9-game win streak, but I mean, it's been a nice story, but that's where it ends. I mean, this should be realistic. Purdue's going to handle them, I think.
For me, even before the tournament started going into it, on one of the episodes, we were talking about the matchups leading up to the tournament. It was before the bracket came out. And I picked Purdue to make a far run to at least a Sweet 16. I felt early on that they were at least a Sweet 16 team. And, it just so happened to be that they have probably the easiest out of the bracket out of this entire tournament. So I think that now they could easily be a Final Four team realistically. Purdue, what I like about them is their ability to score and their length inside is unmatched. And Texas was coming into that game with the game plan of let's just send their bigs to the foul line, and I guess Chris Beard was just playing like the mathematics game. Their two bigs are both shooting under 60% from the line. They're not great free throw shooters. So I guess Chris Beard was kind of gambling on the fact that if we send them to the line, then they'll miss their shots and maybe we can stay in this game. But I think Purdue showed against Texas that they're a tough, gritty team. They can take contact, they can finish at the rim, and if need be, they can come through with their free throw. So I think that Purdue easily handles St. Peter's without question. I think it's not going to be close. And like you said, Mike, now we're getting to the point where it's like, the true contenders are really coming to play. Like you said, there's always that Cinderella team just because, anyone can beat anyone on any given day. But I think now the real championship DNA will rise to the top. And I think that they'll ease. I mean, honestly, like this will probably be a 20-point victory by Purdue. I have no trepidation about saying that at all.
I think St. Peter's saving graces is that Purdue is not a very good 3-point shooting team.
Mm-hmm.
So if they have any shot to beat them, they're gonna have to just be, absolutely lighting it up from 3.
Yeah. Yeah, because Purdue loves to attack the paint. That's all they do. They just feed their big men and just let them. I don't know if you guys saw the Texas game, but that's pretty much what they did all game. Letting their big men work in the paint.
Get this. They shot 46 free throws to Texas's 12 in that game.
Exactly. And, it wasn't because the officiating. A lot of people want to say the officiating was bad. It was lopsided, whatever the case may be. If you actually saw the game and you saw what Texas' strategy clearly was, especially on defense, was if they get in the paint, hit them. That was bottom line. Their strategy. I think Purdue was like in the double bonus with 12 minutes left in the second half.
Texas committed 29 fouls throughout the course of the game.
Yeah, it was insane, and obviously the strategy didn't work. But so I think that Purdue is going to pull this one out easily. I don't think physicality wise St. Peter's can match at all. I think it's going to be a wipe. I really do.
Okay, so I'm going to get a lot of heat for this.
Go on.
I don't think it's a blowout, as you guys are saying it's going to be. I think we're neglecting the first two opponents St. Peter's had on a shortened season. So you start off against Kentucky. As you said, they give up 70 points, 60, 70 points a game, right? Doesn't bode well for them, right? But correct me if I'm wrong. You guys may know this better than me. But St. Peter's runs hockey lineups, right? Meaning when 5 people, like when it's time to sub in, all 5 sub in.
Like a full sail shift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this is a team from just looking at their stats this last year that any one starter or bench player can give you 20. And their defense may not be good, but they're scoring up there with the best of them. I mean, you talk about a number 2 seed in Kentucky that I'm sure you guys can even admit y'all had marked in as sharpied in as beating St. Peter's, and then St. Peter's comes back and gives them 85. And then Murray State, it's like, okay, well, lucky game. It's not going to happen again. And guess what? 70-60, their best defensive player performance of the entire year, right? Now you have a Purdue team, and you look at their previous matchups. You have Yale. Okay, Yale put up 56. Texas, a notoriously weak offensive team, right? So their defense might be solid, but Purdue held them to 71, which is a lot for Texas, a Chris Beard team. And now you're talking about a St. Peter's team that can score with any team as well. Their defense isn't the best, but I mean, if you're looking at Purdue, as you said, they're kind of weak in the 3-point shot, so that might work in their favor. I do have Purdue winning, but maybe I might have Purdue +3 on this. Maybe, I mean, -3 on this. I don't think it's going to be entirely a wash.
The thing with me and St. Peter's is in their past 2 games, they've allowed the opponent's star player to go off, right?
Mm.
But on the same side of on the flip side of the coin, they've had a player on their team also go off. So they're balancing they're like it's too fine of a line that they're riding here.
Yeah.
You know, they're relying on somebody to absolutely have a monster game to compete with obviously more skilled opponent. Well, I mean, fair play to them, they're achieving it, but is that a sustainable way to continue to win games?
No, definitely not.
I
And
don't know.
also because the first 2 rounds are so quick, the turnaround, it's like boom, you
Yeah.
play and then one, and then 2 days after you're in the next game. So there's really you can't really do any real preparation and film study like as much as you would want to prepare for this other team, especially if they come from a smaller conference and they're a lower seed. I feel like teams get really caught off guard when they play teams like that, which is why Kentucky and Murray State kind of fell by the wayside.
Well, Kentucky definitely underestimated them.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
But
they
I
did
think
not take
now
that game serious, so you can
you
tell
have
they
a
have a
longer
body language.
break. You have more time to prepare. You have more body of work to see how they like to play and who to neutralize specifically. I think Purdue, with their experience, obviously they play in a bigger conference. Their ability to score to me is just up there with any team in this tournament this year. These guys can flat out score from anywhere. I don't think it's a big. I think it's kind of crazy that you're giving him a 3-point line, Chris. That's
I
pretty
think it's.
nuts,
I
man.
only say the 3-point line just exclusive to the fact that they can't shoot. Their bigs are going to dominate, sure, but it's kind of the James Harden effect, Like if you look back to any of the playoff appearances by the Rockets, you have a elite scorer, a guy that's going to give you 30, is going to give you 40 a night, right? But he can only score so much. He's not going to score every shot. He's going to miss some, right? And all that exerting himself on offense, getting him to the basket or getting an open shot, which I know Purdue won't be able to do. So you're thinking about exerting force, going into the paint, having to drive, having to go up, having to waste all this energy, right? And you that has to work in St. Peter's favor, right? Because St. Peter's has such a balanced style of offense that everyone's going to get a chance to score. Everyone's going to get a chance to put up 20. But Purdue, they might give up the star player's points, but he's not going to be able to put up. I mean, barring some historical game, he's not going to put up 70 by himself. And from what we've seen in the tournament, the first person to score 70 wins, right? Or unless it's a low-scoring affair.
Yeah.
So I think that's the only reason why I give him that line. I still have Purdue winning. I don't think it's a wash, though. That might be a hot take. I don't know. I might get slaughtered for this next week, but call it a hunch. I've seen this before. Yeah, we'll bookmark this. So the winner of this game would go on to face North Carolina and UCLA. Boys, your thoughts?
This is an interesting one for me because I think UNC, is riding a hot hand. UCLA, they did make a Final Four. Was it last year?
Mm-hmm.
So and they were able to retain. I think what was it? Three of their starters, right, from their Final Four team last year. They have a nice core of experienced players who know how to make a deep run into the tournament. UNC has star power in guys like our Baycott and nice transfers. Guys like the kid that transferred from Oklahoma. What's his name?
I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Brady Manick. Guys like him who have some sort of experience in the postseason, along with some other pieces that they have. But I think that the experience that UCLA got from making that Final Four last year is enough to help them overcome kind of like a surging UNC right now. And just like the fact that they put up like pretty much consistent scoring, like they can really like spread out the amount of points. I think that really helps them. They don't have to rely on like somebody just absolutely going off per game.
Mm-hmm.
And, in a tournament, not everybody's going to be able to, like, have their best game. Like, star players are going to have, like, off games and stuff, right? But if you have a team where you share the points, like, here's some stats, right? Zuze scores 15 a game. Hawkes Jr. scoring 14. Bernard scoring 12. This guy Campbell scoring 12. This guy Riley scoring 8. See how they spread the points even with their bench. Like their bench is scoring points. So you don't need one guy to completely pop off for you to win. And I think that absolutely helps them.
For me, this is another one that's not going to be close. I think North Carolina wins this game pretty handily just because coming in, they've scored 95 in the first round and 93 in the second round. And I know that against Baylor, in the second round, they were facing a Baylor team that wasn't at full strength. Obviously, nowhere near the team that they were last season when they won the whole thing. But the ability to score 95 against a pretty gritty Marquette team that was coached by Shaka Smart, they really asserted their dominance. And that game didn't look like an 8 seed versus 9 seed matchup to me. That looked like a 2 seed to 15 matchup. It was completely lopsided from tip. It wasn't even close. And then they were really able to pull away from Baylor late. I mean, Baylor, like I said, they weren't at full strength. They have a lot of injuries this year. They overcame a lot. But the ability for North Carolina to score at will and to be able to distribute the points, I don't think it's going to be close. And in my opinion, UCLA shouldn't even be in this at this point so far.
Okay, if you're gonna talk about point scoring, let's be fair to UCLA. They average the same amount of points per game as UNC.
Yeah, but in the tournament in the first round against Akron, it was rough. And honestly, if Akron kind of doesn't throw that game away, I think that UCLA doesn't escape there with a win. I think they're very fortunate to escape there with a win. You know what North Carolina was able to do to Marquette is what you would hope or expect UCLA to do to a team like Akron, and it was completely reversed. And then against St. Mary's, yes, they ran away with it. But
I think you're underestimating how big of that win against St. Mary's was. St. Mary's
really
beat Gonzaga this season in conference play, so they're no slouch,
Nah, I just think that so far UCLA has disappointed from what a lot of people thought they were going to be, especially in that first game against. I mean, they were really close to being eliminated in the first round. Yeah, they got through it. They won a close game. Congrats to them. But I think that North Carolina coming in with the hot hand, I think that they're going to be able to take this game. I don't think it'll be a blowout. I think it'll be a close game within 10 points, within maybe 5 points. But I think the ability for North Carolina to score and distribute the ball is going to bode not so well for UCLA.
Yeah, I also have the Tar Heels going in this one. This is going to be one of those games where it's just kind of, I think the first half will be entertaining. But second half, I think North Carolina pulls away. You just look at the resume, or UCLA's resume versus theirs. Yeah, they had some pretty impressive wins to start off the year. They beat Villanova. They were able to beat Marquette, right? But you also look at UNC's record. They came into Duke's last home game with Coach K, right? Sent him and with the intent to send him off with a loss in his last home game. And I think this is a team that's consistently showed all year that they aren't scared of anybody. Granted, they've lost a few. They've lost to the Tennessees of the world. They lost to the Kentuckys of the world. But then again, those are two top tier programs, right? But they've been well seasoned. They've kind of hit this tournament running. Didn't really miss a beat. I think that, I mean, you saw how they made the reigning national champs look on national television. Yep. And now they're going to go play UCLA, a team that played that same team last year.
Well, to be fair, they almost choked it.
They did, but they started toward the end. Baylor started making mistakes. UNC was able to capitalize, and at the end, that's what you need to be the big boys of the tournament. You need to take advantage of any mistakes possible, shoot your way out of a slump effectively with good, efficient shooting. And I think that's a trend we're starting to see this year since they've changed the three-point line. You're starting to see a lot more mid-range shots, which North Carolina has excelled at in this tournament alone. And it kind of gets you out of slump, gets you going. But statistically speaking, these are two very similar teams. Like, I think it should be a good game. Again, I do think North Carolina is going to pull away in the second half. UCLA is just kind of prone to turnovers, as is UNC, but I think UNC is better equipped to take advantage of those turnovers.
I like North Carolina bottom line because of their physicality. Their physicality is insane. I was looking over at the stats for the game against Baylor. It went to overtime. The field goals were it was a big disparity. North Carolina was shooting 49%, Baylor was shooting 34%, but every other stat is virtually the same until you get to defensive rebounding. And Baylor's obviously in the Big 12. They play a lot of physical ball in that conference. They're really tough guys, and the fact that North Carolina was able to out-rebound them 37-22 on the defensive glass. I think that says a lot about your team if you're able to rebound that well, especially a team such as Baylor, who's really scrappy and physical, like I said. So I think that North Carolina is, they're going to win this game because of their scoring and their physicality. I think it's going to catch UCLA off guard. What really what's giving me a lot of problems with UCLA that I really just can't get over is the Akron game. It was bad. It was looking really bleak there for UCLA at the end of that game, and I was really surprised that they got away with a win there. And the win against St. Mary's is huge, but I think they're gonna fold. I really think they are.
Well, let's give credit, man. The best teams can pull out games when they're not playing at their best.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that's why
yes.
that's like the mark of a champion. That's the mark of a really good team. When you're having an off day, yet you still pull out a win. May it be to a lesser opponent, yes. So, but then they rebounded well. They showed me a lot that last round. All right, I think we should move on kind of now and look at the South region here with our first game or the top side of the bracket, I guess. It's the number 1 seed, the Arizona Wildcats, barely escaping against TCU to face Houston. Who do we think?
Kelvin Sampson, man. I think Kelvin Sampson.
I saw him go shirtless. I'm a believer.
Yeah, he did. But I think the story is down here that Kelvin Sampson's. If for those of y'all that don't know, Kelvin Sampson's son is actually on the coaching staff, and over the last 2 years, he's been kind of grooming him to take over his job. So this isn't like really a nationally televised story, but I think he understands what this is. I think he understands what this tournament means. And it would be great for him to be able to beat Arizona, which is a very winnable game. Arizona's a 1 seed, but they're one of those 1 seeds that kind of got in off of by default.
Chris, they went 33-3.
Again, by default. I don't think they're that good. I don't think the Pac-12 was that good. You have UCLA on the other end of things. But, I mean, USC didn't make it. Oregon didn't make it. Those big-time programs that typically make the tournament. Arizona, and let me pull up the Arizona. Hold on.
Well, I might prove your point right a little bit here. ESPN has Houston at a 60% chance to win, according in their Basketball Power Index matchup predictor. If that means anything to you.
ESPN analytics a little bit biased.
Yeah.
But
I think you're being biased right now, Chris. I think you're definitely letting your Houston bias show a little bit here. I think so, man.
If you look at their schedule,
here's the
schedule.
Look
at their schedule. You look at the big games that they had. They had Tennessee over in Tennessee to prove it. They lost by 4. All right. UCLA at UCLA we didn't get to see, was postponed. At number 7 USC was postponed. Arizona State postponed. When they played UCLA later, they lost. USC they won by 4 at home. So they're a good team, but just watching that TCU game, I don't think they were. And granted, all respect to TCU, I don't think that team should have been in that game. If Arizona was truly a 31-3 team all year, they should. Or 33-3 team all year, they should have wiped the floor with TCU.
Well, We've seen TCU. I think 33 might be including their 2 tournament wins. But yeah, yes.
Okay, so 31-3. But I mean, Wright State 87-70. Fine, you should win that game. TCU. Tough, gritty opponent. Not by any means a elite defensive game, but they still allowed 8 in that game. U of H is a team that was in the Final Four last year that's been consistently good. Granted, in Arizona's defense, I think that U of H hasn't really played anybody this year as well. They're 31-5.
Well, they did beat a good Houston. Houston did beat a good Memphis team.
They did, but you saw how Memphis performed in the tournament. and they also lost to that same Memphis team. They lost to SMU respectively, and I think that was their biggest indictment all year, that they didn't really have any good games. They didn't really play anybody. The games that were big leading up to it, they lost. Now, granted, they should have beat Alabama, but that was a really bad call by the ref at the end of the game. Memphis, they should have won at home, but they lost. But then they lost. They got swept by Memphis, actually. So, in the grand scheme of things, it should be a good, high-scoring game. Both teams defensively have been kind of slacking.
Yeah, Arizona, scores a lot, but they also give up a lot of points. They're averaging 85 a game, but they're also giving up 75. So
this one for me is the one that's the most coin flip out of any of the matchups that are left. This one, honestly, for me, could go either way. Well, just because you don't know how they're going to match well together, and Arizona's coming off a tough win, so yeah, they have that little momentum, but they also took a little bit of a scare there, and I don't know, man. For me, honestly, this is a toss-up. I'll defer to you two, especially Chris, because he watches obviously most of the Houston games. But for me, this one's honestly a toss-up. I'm surprised that Arizona was able to escape against TCU. It looked like TCU had a little momentum late in that game. There was some questionable calls, but they were able to pull away in overtime, and that's the only thing that is encouraging for me with Arizona, is that they're coming in with a lot of confidence after being able to kind of, breathe a big sigh of relief after getting over the hump against TCU. Neither of these teams shoot the three ball particularly well. They're both around the 35% mark. So for me, this one is honestly like such a toss-up, and I think that out of all the games, this one's going to be the closest heading into the Sweet 16 for sure.
Survive and advance. Survive and advance.
I'm being very biased.
Survive and advance. I'll go in Arizona.
I don't think. I mean,
survive and advance.
I'll finish this up here. I'm being biased toward Arizona simply due to the fact that Arizona, if they're a true 1 seed, TCU is that team that you can flex your muscle with. Like, you see a top 10 seeded team against you, you're number one seeded.
But TCU ain't just no normal top 10 seed,
Well,
or
again,
9
to your
seed,
point,
whatever
Mike,
they were.
Their season, they play in the Big 12. They've played in the hostile environment, so they kind of know how to go about it, like go about these big games. But I mean, you look at Arizona, man. If it wasn't for Mike Miles missing that layup, you're talking about a TCU team that's advancing to play Houston, and I really think that's the that's the deciding factor for them, and why I don't really view them as a 1 seed. Yes, their record backs it up, but I mean, you look at all these other 1 seeds, exception of Baylor, of course, they're backing up their seeded number, So,
well, I guess you can only play who's in front of you, bad conference or not.
That's fair. So, speaking of bad conferences, theoretically, we also have the Big Ten, Michigan going up against Villanova. The Big Ten has not performed well in this tournament. So, what are your thoughts on that, guys? They never do. No, they never show up.
They never do, man.
Michigan's an interesting team because they didn't have a particularly good regular season, very inconsistent, even though they have some top players that they've returned from last season's team. But I think Villanova has a little bit too much firepower. They have the Big East Player of the Year in Gillespie. A lot of size. Very experienced, very knowledgeable head coach that's going to, pretty much be like a 6-man on the court for them. I don't see a world where Michigan – well, I can, because Michigan's played pretty well in this tournament, despite the fact that they played pretty poorly throughout the regular season. But I think that Villanova has a little bit too much for Michigan. I'm only taking Villanova slightly. I'm talking 6 to 8 points here in a win. It's going to be a tough matchup. But I mean, it's going to be close. It's just based off the Michigan's recent games, because they've had some pretty good games here in the tournament. ESPN's not giving Michigan pretty much a chance, but I think it's going to be it's definitely within 10 points.
I think Villanova wins this one pretty. I mean, not. I think it'll be close, but it won't be anything that'll make Villanova too uncomfortable. And the reason that I said it is because Michigan, like you said, Mike, coming in, they really underperformed for what you expect a Michigan team to do, especially after the season the couple seasons that they had last year and the year before. Michigan's really underperformed, and I think that what kind of helped Michigan in a way was the whole Juwan Howard situation that went down, because that kind of gave them a lot to play for. It really brought the team together. We see a lot of times when scandals like that rock teams really come together.
Invigorates your team.
Definitely.
Gives you a spark.
So you go, the last half of the regular season without your head coach, and then he comes back for the tournament, and you're all juiced up, you're ready to get going. You see how much it means to your head coach to win even a regular season game. And going into the tournament, I think that's what has propelled them to beat Colorado State and then upset Tennessee. But I think that Villanova, like you said, just has way too much firepower. And I think that Michigan's gas is going to kind of run out, especially now. I think that what is really undervalued is the break between the second round and the Sweet 16. You have a lot more time to prepare. Your players can get some rest. If you had a player carry your team, maybe the first round or the second round, they are going in fresh. So I think that for that reason, Villanova's experience, their winning DNA is going to just rise to the top, and Michigan's going to, kind of fall back to the old ways of the regular season before the Juwan Howard incident. And I think that Villanova wins. I don't think it'll be a blowout, but I don't think it'll be particularly close, just because of the offensive efficiency of Villanova. They've really had no trouble with Delaware or Ohio State. Those were pretty handy wins. And, props to Michigan. They got a big win over Tennessee. A lot of people had Tennessee in the Final Four earlier in this year. But I definitely give the edge to Villanova in this game, for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to give it to Villanova as well. I want to give it to Michigan because, historically in the past few years, we do see these teams that escape a second round game and then they go on and take the momentum from that game into the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight. I do want to point out that Tennessee played a very very good game, very emotional game, and that affects your players. That's not something that we can ignore. But again, I think Villanova's been through those emotional games all year. I think that's going to come into fruition, sometime in the second half, I'm expecting. And Villanova's just going to start pulling away, and, the spread of 6 is pretty accurate, Mario, as they are a really, really good shooting team. Mm-hmm. And I think that Michigan, Juwan Howard, this whole thing, typically those things, they can get your team going. But, man, when that team deflates, it deflates. And it's not something that you can rebound from because you're already dealing with the fallout of that incident and the fallout of making the tournament when you do, the suspension when he was suspended, what was it, 2 games, 1 game? That affects your team's mentality moving forward. And, luckily they were able to get past Colorado State and Tennessee, but Villanova's not Tennessee or Colorado State. So, Villanova by 6.
Yeah, this one's pretty straightforward for me. But I think that now, as Chris's dog goes a little crazy,
yes,
we should move on to the west side of the bracket for sure. And why don't we start talking about Gonzaga versus Arkansas real quick on the west side?
He wasn't happy with that last pick, man. Damn.
No, he likes Michigan. He really likes Michigan. Let's talk about Gonzaga, Arkansas. So Arkansas, if anyone didn't see that viral video of them closing out the game against, it was Auburn, right? With that dunk and the lights flash, that was actually pretty cool as a Texas Tech fan to see that kind of environment.
That was awesome, man. That was really cool.
But I think we're all in kind of agreement here. Gonzaga's been on a mission.
Not so fast, Chris.
Oh, really?
They're going to win, but it's not going to be an easy game. I mean, shit, Memphis took them to the brink. And Georgia State was playing them tough until the end. I don't think this could be that simple. Arkansas was a team that last year made some noise in the tournament. Let's not forget, they knocked off Texas Tech in the second round last year, right?
Yeah.
They played really.
Beard's unraveling.
Well, hold on now. Give them some credit. They had a first-year head coach in Eric Musselman, right? He's coming back for his second year. He's had experience in a tournament before with Nevada and now here with Arkansas. I think this is a guy and a team that's on a mission to prove that last year wasn't a fluke, and nor is this year getting all the way to the Sweet 16. I really have a lot of faith in this Arkansas team to keep it really close, even though I'm pretty sure a lot of people aren't going to give them a shout at all. But I wasn't truly impressed with the size on the inside of Gonzaga, right? You have Timmy and you have Holgram, right? And these guys we're not being super dominant forces like Timmy was last year's tournament. He hasn't like he looks so much more dominant last year. I mean, I might just be faded or whatever, but I feel like Arkansas definitely has a chance, man. And because I mean, these guys, Timmy, it's really for me, it's Timmy. He doesn't look like the same guy that he was last year, and I feel like their guard play it has regressed since last year, right? With some guys going to the NBA, notably Suggs, right? So they're relying on these freshmen, these young guys, to really step up in a high pressure situation that they've never been in before. They play in a very lackluster conference besides St. Mary's. I think it might be a struggle for them if Arkansas comes out swinging in the first half and punches them right in the face. I think they like if they don't adjust to the physicality that Arkansas is going to bring to them, they could have some trouble.
Gonzaga got in
spread
trouble
is 10
with
points.
Yeah, but I think you hit the nail on the head, Mike, with Drew Timmy, because Gonzaga, the reason why they were in trouble versus Memphis is because Drew Timmy had like an abysmal first half. Like he couldn't get the lid off the basket, man. It was really bad. And the second half, he really turned it on. He came into his own and he did his thing, right? But like you said, he hasn't really been as dominant as last tournament. That guy was the talk of the whole tournament. Everyone was so surprised about his physicality, what he could do for his size. He was the big talk of the tournament. This year, I feel like Gonzaga is kind of coasted by a little bit under the radar. I mean, yeah, they're a first seed, but with Gonzaga, you expect them. It's almost a formality for them to either make the Elite Eight or the Final Four. So I think that Gonzaga is going to pull it out. And not a lot of people are giving Arkansas a chance, and I get what you're saying, but I think that Gonzaga is just going to come into their own in this game. And the separator for me is a 3-point shooting, especially in the tournament, because Arkansas is shooting 30% from behind the stripe. I mean, from behind the arc, and Gonzaga is shooting 37% from behind the arc. So I think that if Gonzaga can really establish their offense and get going the way that we know Gonzaga can do, and just run through the motions of their offense and feeding Timmy and just being this well-oiled machine that we know Gonzaga can be, I think they're going to pull it out. And, Arkansas was pushed to the brink against New Mexico State, and I was really surprised that, New Mexico State kind of went cold, and I don't want to take anything away from Arkansas's defense at the end of that game, but New Mexico State kind of went cold at the end, and they were a little lackluster offensively, and Arkansas really was able to stretch the lead out to where it was more of a comfortable lead at the end. But I think that Gonzaga pretty handily wins this game. I don't think it'll be too.
Yeah, let me just say this also before Chris has his piece. I'm not calling Drew Timmy a scrub or anything, all right? Just for anybody who thought I was faded or something there. The guy's a baller, okay?
Yeah,
I'm just saying he hasn't been as dominant as he was last year. Yep. I'm not saying that he's not bad or he's been playing like shit or anything, all right? Just the dominance factor, okay? All right.
You know how you can kind of pull things from different sports and different levels of play that you can kind of remind you of stuff?
Yeah.
The vibe I get from this Gonzaga team is that 2014 Spurs team. And I think that they came into this season determined. I mean, they lost Jalen Suggs. Yes, that's a really big hit to them. But you still have guys on this team that were on that Final Four team. And I think that, one that comes to mind, Chet Holgram. He's going to be a top 10 pick this upcoming draft.
He's going to be a top 3 pick.
Yeah, top 3. Drew Timmy.
2 lottery guys, man.
You have 2 lottery guys, and usually what do we say to win the tournament? You need 2 lottery guys, good defense, and good rebounding, right? To win the tournament. That's what we've seen historically. And I just genuinely believe that Gonzaga is on a mission. I think their mission won't stop until the Final Four. I want, and speaking of the next matchup, we'll get into that in a second, I want Texas Tech to do it, but man, I saw Gonzaga play us earlier this year, and that's a tough team. That is a disciplined team, that is a well-coached team, that is a prepared team. And we know that. Go ahead.
Let's be fair to Texas Tech, right? That was before this team really came into their own and they were really clicking. So I don't know if you could really judge that like as much as you can some of these other games because it was so early in the season. I think it was like in December, right? It was even before conference play started. It was one of those like invitational type deals where teams go out to like where it's like MSG or something, whatever it was. So it was really before this team started clicking. I mean, and to give even more credit to Texas Tech, I guess, is that they had so many transfers, right? So many new. They have like 8 transfers. So that team,
at the time.
they never played together. Pretty much just played like, just practicing in the summer. They had like no team chemistry, and they played Gonzaga tough, just based off talent. So I don't know if you can really fairly judge that game, as you can now. So I think it'd be tough.
I think back to what you were saying too, Chris. I feel like now more than any time in the last few years, that this Gonzaga team is really on a mission, just because that this is talent-wise, one of their best teams, and they might not have these pieces going forward into the next couple seasons. And it's really surprising and kind of disappointing that a team that performs in the regular season in March as good as Gonzaga hasn't been able to put it all together and then culminate in the national championship. But I mean, I just think that they're so motivated right now to get it done and to get over that hump. And that's why I have Gonzaga winning this game for sure.
Yeah, so we kind of teased Texas Tech, so let's just get into that. Full disclosure, before we start this segment, we are all Texas Tech fans. We're going to be objective about this as much as we can. But I know for me personally, I still hold some hostility for when I hold some hostility toward Duke for when they had Zion, RJ, Cam Reddish at MSG back in, 2018, and we lost. But that was because of foul shots, and we couldn't execute our own foul shots personally. So in my eyes, we lose that game by 5-6 points. But this upcoming tournament, we're going to have Duke, hopefully Coach K's retirement party, but let's try and be objective here. How are we feeling about Texas Tech Duke, fellas?
I think this is obviously the best matchup of the Sweet 16. The 2 versus 3 seeds, the only 2-3 seed matchup that we have here in the Sweet 16. So, just by where these teams are ranked, obviously it's the best game. But it's also the best game because these two teams are like complete opposite ends of the spectrum of how they play basketball, right? It's Duke's very up-tempo, very fast, not too great on the defensive end, but pretty stellar on the offensive side of the ball. And Texas Tech is kind of the opposite. Absolutely, and maybe probably the best defense in the country, but kind of at times some lackluster offense. So it's gonna be kind of one of these things where it's like how do you say, like an immovable object versus like what I'm saying, like an unstoppable force. Something has to give. You got like the best defense and the marquee offense in the country. Like Mario was alluding to earlier, he was saying that defense travels, and I hold that to be very true. Like I think that if you look like at Texas Tech's championship Final Four team from a few years ago, they had an absolutely stellar defense that time as well, and we saw that defense be able to travel throughout different venues throughout the country through the course of the tournament, right? And I feel like this team is just so professionally coached on that side of the ball that the game plan they're going to come up with to stop some of these Duke stars is going to be probably too much for them to handle, that they haven't encountered throughout the entire season. I don't think they've seen a defense the caliber of Texas Tech so far, and I think it's really going to stun them when they go into play, and they're not going to be able to get to the middle of the court because they like to drive the ball and they like to force into their bigs and get kind of these mid-range to like under the basket 2-footers, Yeah. And with Texas Tech's no middle defense, I mean, as soon as somebody drives, they're going to get swatted. They're going to get smacked. They're going to get pushed around. They're going to get pushed. They're going to get hit in the mouth as soon as they hit the paint. And I think that's really going to rattle them. And unless they're able to make like these mid-game adjustments or even like halftime adjustments, I don't see a world where Texas Tech doesn't beat Duke unless they have like a historically bad night on the offense side of the ball, which it could definitely happen because they've shown their inconsistency on that side. but I really feel like Texas Tech has to have the edge here because, I mean, this defense, like, almost all time, it's, like, that good.
For me, it
That's
comes
just
down
my
to two
take.
keys. For me, it's two resounding things that Texas Tech has to rely on to not lose this game. Number one is to limit 3-point shooting as much as possible. We saw how much that almost cost them against Notre Dame. That game at the end,
it's true.
Notre Dame had all the momentum. The Tech was on a scoring drought, and Texas Tech was able to pull it out because of their physicality. We saw that their last 10 points in that entire game were from the free throw line.
It came from free throws.
So we see the physicality that Tech plays with, especially on the defensive side. Marcus Santos Silva, I think, is really coming into his own as the defensive anchor of that team.
I
love
how you can switch on guards.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So underrated.
You really don't see that a lot. And I think the reason why Tech is able to run the switch everything defense that they do is because his ability, along with like Kevin O'Banner's and Bryson Williams' ability to switch on guards. So that's what makes Tech very versatile. So if it comes down to two things, like I said, is if they can stop Duke hitting threes, and number two, Bryson Williams. This offense goes as Bryson Williams goes.
Yep, I was about to say that.
When he is dominant, there is no stopping that guy because he can stretch the floor, he can play in the post, he can drive to the hoop.
He can even shoot the occasional three.
Yeah, that guy is honestly an all-around amazing player. And I think what's hampered Texas Tech offensively over the last two games, not only in this tournament, well, not really the first game. The first game was a wash against Montana. I mean, Texas Tech was a complete blowout. But I think the one against Notre Dame and the last game of the season in the Big 12 tournament against Kansas, what really hampered Texas Tech is Bryson Williams' inability to stay out of foul trouble. And we see this with him a lot where he loses a rebound and he swats at it, And I understand the physicality and that dog mentality that these players of Texas Tech have. But there comes a point where you have to really be smart and pick your battles. And that is not something that you can afford to do against Duke, where the Notre Dame game, I feel like, was close because Bryson Williams was on the bench for half of the first half. For 10 minutes of the first half, he wasn't on the floor because he had 3 fouls. And I think that if Bryson Williams can stay out of foul trouble and if Texas Tech can keep Duke from shooting good from behind the 3-point line, I think that they're going to be able to pull this game out. I also think that Krzyzewski, yes, he's a great coach. Obviously, we know the experience that he has, the aura that's around him. We understand that, but they have been vulnerable many times, not only this tournament, but this season, going back to when they lost their final home game of the regular season. And I think that emotionally, maybe Coach K isn't in the best place to get over a really gritty, kind of tough team like Texas Tech. And that's the only reason why I give Tech the edge is if they can limit Duke's 3-point shooting, which already isn't fantastic, and if Bryson Williams can stay out of foul trouble and facilitate for the offense, I think that Texas Tech wins. And I think that they'll surprise a lot of people in how resounding they'll win this game.
I think you got to look at Shannon. I feel like Shannon hasn't had a breakout game in this tournament yet.
The first one he played really well, but that's against it's kind of a wash.
Yeah, I really don't. I don't look at that game too
me neither.
Too much, really. It was very lesser skilled opponent. I mean, no offense to Montana State or whatever, but it was a wash. But I think Shannon needs a good game. I want to see Shannon get more aggressive to the basket. He's been kind of reckless at times when he drives in, but I want to see him drive to the basket strongly, but with finesse when he finishes. I feel like he just kind of tries to bulldoze his way when at the point of contact at the rim instead of using some of his finesse that I know he has the ability to use. And if he uses
get those calls though,
I'm not talking about like shooting free throws. Really, I want him to finish at the rim when he gets there. If he gets fouled, okay, cool. But I want to see him finishing strongly, but with finesse at the rim.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
The thing is that the guy looks like he has blinders on when he's driving to the rim. He really just bulldozes
everyone in his way, at the point of contact at the rim. He's bulldozing guys. If he just finished with finesse, he'd be top level. He'd be lottery pick almost. I feel he's got the ability to be.
Yeah, especially the way that they're calling charges in this tournament. Pretty much everything is a charge in this tournament. We've seen that they're calling very few blocking fouls, especially inside the paint. And if Shannon gets out of control, like you said, Mike, they're definitely going to take advantage of that on the Duke side for sure.
So I'm going to set the stage for you guys, and I'll take y'all's feedback afterward. These are two teams that
Sure.
I think we can all be in agreement. Last year, we don't really count just due to the fact that there were no fans, the environment wasn't there, that six man on the court wasn't actually there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have Duke, who missed the tournament last year, right?
Yep.
We have Texas Tech that was eliminated in the second round to Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
So let's hypothetically eliminate last year, right? Altogether. This is a Texas Tech team that was in the national championship. This is the Duke team that had three of the most hyped up prospects in recent memory, right? So you have this team in Lubbock that went through all of this only to watch their coach go to the rival team, try and poach most of the players to that rival team, and continue to dump on the coach that's there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you have Duke with all these young, unproven players since, last year was a wash. Coach K's last year that are hungry to leave a lasting footprint on this legacy that he's built. And like you said, Mike, it's going to be a movable object versus a movable object. And I don't see a world where Texas Tech doesn't put up the biggest fight that Duke has seen maybe in the last 2 years. And I think and I think you point to Terrence Shannon, you point to Kevin McCullough, Clarence Nadolny, like guys that have been here, that have been to the tournament, that have seen how close there is. Granted, they lost in the second round last year, right? But this is a team that's seasoned. This is a team that has gone toe-to-toe with Kansas, a team that's had an emotional game against Texas, that's swept the reigning national champions.
I was going to say,
right?
that beat the reigning national champions twice.
Yeah, and you have to look at this big picture, like from a national media stage. This is going to be a game basically to define the farewell season of Coach K. Did he really get the most out of his players? Because you had Zion Williamson, RJ Barrett, Cam Reddish, and couldn't get the job done.
Yeah.
So now you're going into this game, okay, I have to do whatever I can to beat this game. So I'm expecting him to throw out some sets we haven't seen in years. I'm expecting him to try and beat us early, so we have to play catch up, which as we all know, is kind of difficult with this team with our random cold streaks, and that's something we cannot afford to happen this particular game. I agree with Terrence Shannon being more aggressive, but I'll take it a step further. I think Kevin McCullough needs to be more aggressive. I think he needs to be the one to facilitate the offense, to kind of get things going initially, and then that'll open up opportunities for Bryson Williams. That'll open up opportunities for Terrence Shannon. And most importantly, and I think you and I can agree on this, open up opportunities for O'Banner.
O'Banner, yeah.
Who is our best three-point shooter right now. And I think he's going to be critical.
In a row.
Yeah,
I think this is keep going. No, go ahead. Finish your point.
No, I just think that this is a game where we're not necessarily the better team, but I think we have all the tools of which to beat the better team.
Well, I think we're a better team, but we might not be as talented as they are.
Yes,
but we're a better
Yes,
team.
that yes, and I mean, Coach Adams, man, he's been through the ringer. He is. You look at all the opponents he's had to game plan for what we're going on to 5 years now at Texas Tech, with the rosters he was given then, and now you look at the roster he's given now. Arguably one of the best, not the best, but arguably one of the most defensively talented rosters that we've had in a long time.
I think we have to mention this narrative here. I don't know if a lot of people are mentioning this or even talking about this, but the pressure on the players for Duke to succeed for Coach K because it's his final season.
Yeah.
They know it's his last dance, so there's even more pressure. Not like there's pressure for playing for Duke, for playing for Coach K, right? But now the added pressure that that if you lose, this is the last game that this guy is ever going to coach, and he's the best coach in the history of the game for college basketball, right? So that added pressure, that's running through their mind right now. That they don't want to let him down, but these are 18, 19, 20-year-old kids we're talking about here. I don't know if they can handle that amount of pressure, or if they even understand that amount of pressure that's being placed on them by default. I mean, to no fault of their own. It's just their coach who just happened to pick this year for him to retire.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah. And
I'm sure these kids are feeling it.
I'll take it a step further, man. I think that everything that's going on with Duke this season and how the national media has really, coined this, like his last dance is, we all understand his importance. But I think if you're anything but a casual fan, you're kind of tired of it. Like, okay, we get it. Coach K, we know, we understand his impact for the game. We get it. I don't need to see another montage of his winning a championship or cutting a net down. I don't need to see another montage of him with Team USA. No one else wants to see that, who's actually ingrained in college basketball and who watches college basketball on a day-to-day basis. We are all tired of it. Like, we get it. We understand it. And the media is playing it too far. And I think that, like you said, Mike, the added pressure to the players, but also the added motivation for opposing teams to send this guy packing.
Yeah. That's true.
You saw how they folded against UNC, and
I was about to say that they folded.
And,
I mean, the pressure that they knew that this is Coach K's last ever home game, and they fold
People were
against a team that they should have smoked.
People were camping out for 2 weeks to watch that game.
Yeah.
People paid upwards of thousands of dollars to watch that game, and they folded.
Against a UNC team they should have smoked.
Yep.
With a new head coach at you.
Yes, exactly. And y'all know I'm devil's advocate. If this wasn't Coach K's last year, I'd be like, you know what? This is what Texas Tech has to do to win. But realistically, this is Coach K. This is just what Duke does. And you know what? That's usually how I would go about this. But man, like, I had a good feeling about Duke going into the tournament. Then I saw the matchup. Then I saw they had to play us. I lost all of that feeling for Duke. I think that Duke is these kids. I mean, they're kids. Haven't really been through that with Coach K. You have most of these Duke teams that end up going to the Final Four with players that have been there for years. That some of them stay till their senior year. Your Trey Joneses of the world. Your Justice Winslow.
Your Plumlees, all of them.
Yeah, exactly. But you have
three of them.
Yeah, you have these young kids who haven't really been through it with him, and I think that's a big thing for these teams. How they need to get into the tournament, how they need to grow. They need to have some kind of foundation instead of just saying, oh, I'm going to go play basketball for Coach K. Oh, wait, this is last year? Okay, this is my only year I'm going to play, So I have Texas Tech winning by a very close margin in a very low-scoring game. I'm going to say 4 in a close game.
I'm thinking under 10 for sure. I'm thinking somewhere in the margin of like 68, 62, somewhere in that range, something like that. I don't think this game probably gets to the 70s just with the defense that Texas Tech has. It's just pretty unreal. So I don't think that the game probably gets into the 70s. And I'm assuming it's going to be a really tough game, really close game. It sounds like we're shitting on Duke like they're a piece of shit school or something.
I was about to say that.
This is going to be a close game.
Yes.
This is one of the greatest. Go ahead.
This is going to be a really close game.
Yes.
We're acting like Texas is going to go out there and smoke these fools or something, but I'm talking like it's probably under 10 points, 10-point margin. Either way for whoever wins.
For sure.
It's a statement game for both teams. I think whoever wins this game is going to the Final Four.
Yes.
Yes.
I think.
I don't think Gonzaga has a chance against any of these teams.
Whoever wins this game, the amount of momentum they're going to have going into this into the Elite Eight is going to be pretty much unmatched. So I think whoever wins is going to the Final Four. Realistically.
And this is a program defining.
It's going to be a dogfight
for these guys.
For Texas Tech, definitely. If Texas Tech beats Duke with Krzyzewski's last ever game.
The amount of transfers that we get next season, it's going to be insane.
Incredible.
I mean,
you know what?
I mean, talk about 5-star recruits lining up.
Yep.
Yeah, and think about Duke's side of things if they do go on to win this game. You could say they beat Gonzaga earlier this year, right? They beat UNC this year, but that was earlier, and you kind of have to look at it like, okay, if Duke is able to beat this Texas Tech team, which is, as you referred to earlier, Mike, one of the best, if not the best defense in the country, who's stopping them?
Yeah.
And that's not even like us blowing smoke up Texas Tech, but I mean, this is the clash of titans. I'm not trying to overhype this. I'm not even being biased here. I just think this is two really, really good programs. I think Texas Tech is still relatively young in college basketball sense of things.
Oh yeah, new blood.
But I think Duke's established. I think, not to sound cliche, but this is the handing of the torch, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think and oh my gosh, Mark Adams, if you are listening, run the offense through Bryson Williams.
Please, man.
Please.
He just gets away from it too much, I think.
Yes, and I like being complacent. I like trying to get the guards going, but Bryson Williams is your bread and butter in this.
You know what?
Yes.
For this game offensively.
I might have like a kind of like obtuse take to this. I think you use Bryson Williams as your bait to open up for everybody else, because I know that they're going to be doing some extensive film study on how Bryson Williams played against these top tier teams in the Big 12, like how exceptionally well he played against Kansas and how he played against Baylor, right? So they're going to be tuning their game plan on the defense side of the ball to stop this guy at all costs. They're going to force somebody else to beat them, right? So, this is when you use him as a decoy, I feel. You open up the game plan for everybody else. You know, pick and rolls. You throw it to him low. You pass it out. You shoot the three. You shoot the mid range. I think this is when you throw it to him low. You get a guy slashing. He passes. He's an exceptional passer too. I feel like that's an underrated part of his game that nobody talks about, other than his interior scoring. I feel like he's gonna be best served as a decoy in this game. He'll get his points. I'm not saying he's not gonna score any, but his role as a facilitator in this game, I think, is gonna be huge for this team.
Yeah, I just think that's the big problem with this Texas Tech team in terms of preparing for them is like, okay, who do you want to take away? You want to take away Bryson? Okay, O'Banner's going to go off for a double-double. You want to take away O'Banner? Then Kevin's going to go off for 15, 20 points. You want to take him away? Then Nadolny might come up and have a huge game, or Adonis Arms. And what I really like about Texas Tech is how physical they are, man. Like, you can see when they rebound the ball. You have
they need a Banner to have another great rebounding game.
Yes.
Yep.
That's the thing with Tech is the rebounding is insane. If they can be as physical and as
second chance points are going to win this game.
100%. If they can play at Tech's tempo, which is slow, everything down, not letting them get a shot off until like 5 seconds in the shot clock, running the offense completely to its fruition, finding a cutter, I think that Texas Tech and like you're saying, Mike, you got to hand all the respect to Duke. You don't want to make them seem like we're saying they're bums or anything like that. But I was more worried about the way that Texas Tech matched up versus Notre Dame versus how Texas Tech, I think, is going to match up against Duke. Just because Duke doesn't have the 3-point firepower that Notre Dame has. Yeah,
I think we also have to mention this, that Duke has some this is a testament to how big Texas Tech is, that their guard play, Texas Tech guards are so much bigger. I'm talking like 4 inches on all of Duke's guards.
Yeah.
Like in size factor, which is, I mean, when you're okay, these guys are going to try and ISO, right? But you got a guy who's 4 inches bigger than you, man. And these guys play tough defense. They're not going to let you get to the rim, dude. I mean, this is going to be Duke is going to need somebody other than their guards to step up. So I'm excited for it, man. Really excited for it. Really hyped up. I think we've explained pretty much everything that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I mean,
this is my closing thought. This is my closing thought, and just leaving y'all with something to think about. Last time Duke played Texas Tech was in Madison Square Garden, neutral court, and the head coach of Texas Tech was Chris Beard, right? Duke is notorious for taking off games they're not really, prepared for, right? We've seen that in the tournament. We saw that with USF. They almost lost that one year. USF. Yeah, USF in, what was it, the Sweet 16, guys? Sweet 16, I think.
Yes.
And I think, and call me crazy, but all year we've been seeing this narrative that, Texas Tech got the leftovers from Chris Beard. We've seen this whole thing, right? No one's really taking Coach Adams seriously. No one's really taking our team seriously. You could even see that in the AP polls throughout the year. Don't count out Duke taking us lightly going into this game. That's all I'm going to say. I'm just pointing it out because if Texas Tech gets to a hot start, I'm going to take all the credit for that because this Duke team is too worried about Coach K. They're not worried about the opponent, So
yeah.
we'll see what happens Thursday. I think Tech gets off to a hot start. Duke charges back, but I think we kind of keep them arm's length distance the entirety of the game, just because of the intangible factors. Not to.
I wouldn't be surprised if Duke doesn't score 25 at the half. I mean, honestly, I would not be surprised. That's how good this Texas Tech defense is.
Yeah, they're legit guys. But that's gonna do it for now. We're definitely gonna check in with you guys after the Elite Eight. After this whole weekend is done. We've kind of had a hectic week, but we're definitely gonna try and get that episode out to you guys on Sunday, right? Am I right? Sunday?
Yeah, around there.
Okay, we'll get you guys a recap of everything that happened that weekend. But for now, this has been your boy CV, Mike Meltz, and Mello Mario. Any closing thoughts, guys?
No, just go ahead and sub to the YouTube, leave some comments, give us a review on Spotify, engage with our Twitter account. We got a Twitter account now. We're at Double MC on Twitter. Go on there. We'll be running polls. We'll be posting whenever we go live, whenever we got a new podcast up. So go check us out. Engage with us there.
Yeah, guys, thanks for listening, and Wreck 'em Tech.
Wreck 'em.
All right, guys.